The galactic trade hub of Station Varus was the largest slave market in the Outer Rim. Ships from 100 different worlds came here to buy and sell living beings like cattle. The station floated in the darkness of space, far away from any planet, far away from any law. Commander Tova walked through the auction hall with heavy steps. He was a Kalori, a reptile creature that stood almost 3 meters tall. His scales were dark green, almost black, and his eyes were yellow with thin slits for pupils. When he breathed, his forked tongue came out to taste the air. He had been selling slaves for 30 years. It had made him very rich. Behind him walked his guards. They were also Kalori, but smaller, younger. They carried weapons that could burn a hole through metal. No one in the auction hall dared to look at them for too long. The cages lined both sides of the hall. Inside them were creatures from many worlds. Some had fur. Some had scales. Some had too many arms or too many eyes. All of them had the same look. The look of beings who had lost everything. Tova stopped in front of one cage and tilted his head. Inside were 2 humans. Humans were not common in this part of the galaxy. Their home world, Earth, was far away, and their colonies were small and weak. The Kalori did not think much of them. They were soft. They died easily. They were not worth much as slaves, but these 2 were interesting. The first was a young woman. Tova guessed she was in her early 20s. She had long dark hair that was dirty and tangled. Her skin was pale, and there were bruises on her arms. Her name was Yuna, though Tova did not know this and did not care. To him, she was just merchandise. The second was a small boy. He could not have been more than 8 years old. He sat pressed against his sister, his knees pulled up to his chest. His name was Do-Yun. He had not spoken a single word since the day the Kalori killed his parents. That had been 3 weeks ago. Their family had been traveling on a colonial transport ship. They were going to start a new life on a farming world. They never arrived. The Kalori raiders came out of nowhere. They killed the adults who fought back. They took the children and the young women. They left the rest to die in the cold of space. Do-Yun had watched his father die. The boy had been hiding behind a storage container when a Kalori guard shot his father in the chest. His father had been trying to protect his mother. It did not matter. They both died. Now Do-Hyun sat in a cage, waiting to be sold. Yuna held him close. She whispered soft words to him, trying to give him comfort. But there was no comfort to give. They both knew what was coming. Commander Tova crouched down to get a better look at them. His massive body blocked the light. His shadow fell over the cage like a dark blanket. "Humans," he said to his lieutenant. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "The female is pretty, young. She will sell well." The lieutenant nodded. "And the cub?" Tova looked at Do-Yun. The boy did not look away. Most slaves could not meet Tova's eyes. They were too scared. But this small human child stared right back at him. Tova felt something strange. A tiny feeling deep in his chest. He did not recognize it as a warning. He should have. "Separate them," Tova ordered. "The female goes to the pleasure houses on the station. The boy goes to the labor markets. The mines always need workers." Yuna's face went white. "No," she whispered. "No, please. He is just a child. He is my brother. Please do not take him from me." Tova ignored her. Begging was normal. All slaves begged. It meant nothing. The guards opened the cage. 2 of them reached for Yuna. They grabbed her arms and started to pull her out. "Do-Hyun!" She screamed. "Do-Hyun, hold on to me." The boy moved out. It happened so fast that no one understood what was happening at first. Do-Hyun threw himself at the nearest guard. He was small and weak, but he was also fast. Before the guard could react, Do-hyun bit down on his hand. He bit hard. The guard screamed. Purple blood, the color of Kalori blood, poured from the wound. Do-hyun had bitten through the scales, through the flesh, almost to the bone. The guard threw the boy off. Do-hyun flew through the air and hit the metal bars of the cage. He fell to the ground and did not move. Do-hyun! Yuna tried to run to him, but the guards held her back. Commander Tova watched all of this with interest. He was not angry. He was amused. He walked to where Do-hyun lay on the ground. The boy was conscious, but he was hurt. Blood ran down the side of his face from where he had hit the bars. His small body shook with pain. Tova crouched down again. He brought his face close to the boy. His hot breath washed over Do-hyun, smelling of meat and death. "Spirit," Tova said. "You have spirit, little cub. I like that." Do-hyun raised his head. His dark eyes met Tova's yellow ones. "Enjoy your spirit while you can," Tova continued. "Where you are going, they will break it out of you. They will make you work until your hands bleed. They will starve you until you forget what food tastes like. They will beat you until you forget your own name." He leaned even closer. His forked tongue came out and almost touched the boy's face. "And your sister? She will spend the rest of her short life wishing she was dead. There is nothing you can do about it. You are small. You are weak. You are nothing." Do-hyun said nothing, but he did not look away. Deep inside the boy, something was happening. Something that Tova could not see or understand. A fire was starting to burn. It was small now, just a tiny spark. But it would grow. It would grow until it consumed everything. The guards dragged Yuna away. She screamed her brother's name over and over until her voice broke. Other guards picked up Do-hyun and threw him into a transport container with other young slaves. The last thing Yuna saw before they took her away was her little brother's face. He was not crying. He was not screaming. He was just watching her with those dark, quiet eyes. She did not know it then. But that was the moment. Do-hyun made a promise to himself. He would find her. He would save her. And he would kill everyone who had hurt her. It did not matter that he was small. It did not matter that he was weak. It did not matter that he was just a child in a galaxy full of monsters, because Do-hyun was human. And humans had one ability that the Kalori and all the other species in the galaxy had forgotten about. Humans could wait. They could wait, and they could learn, and they could plan. They could take pain and turn it into purpose. They could take hate and turn it into patience. And when the time was right, they could strike with a fury that would shake the stars. Commander Tova walked away, already forgetting about the human cub. It was the biggest mistake of his life. The transport ships left Station Varus that night. One carried Yuna to the pleasure houses. One carried Do-hyun to the asteroid mines. The galaxy continued to spin. Life went on. No one noticed the small human boy being taken to a place where most slaves did not survive more than a year. No one noticed the fire burning behind his eyes. Not yet. The asteroid mines of Kalori Prime were a place where hope came to die. They floated in the darkness of space, ugly rocks filled with precious metals that the Kalori Empire needed for their ships and weapons. Slaves worked the mines. They dug through rock with simple tools. They carried heavy loads through narrow tunnels. They breathed bad air and drank dirty water. Most of them did not live very long. Do-hyun arrived at Mining Station 7 on a cold transport ship with 40 other slaves. They were all young, all small enough to fit into the narrow mining tunnels. Some were children like him. Others were small adults from species he had never seen before. The guards lined them up in a large metal room. A Kalori overseer walked in front of them, looking at each one like a farmer looking at animals. "You belong to the Empire now," the overseer said. His voice was flat and bored. He had given this speech many times. You will work. You will obey. If you do not, you will be punished. If you try to run, you will die. There is nowhere to run. There is only rock and space. Do-hyun listened. He did not react. He did not cry or show fear like some of the others. He just listened and remembered that the first month was the hardest. The work was brutal. Do-hyun had to crawl through tunnels so narrow that he could barely breathe. He had to swing a pick at rock walls until his arms felt like they would fall off. He had to carry bags of ore that weighed almost as much as he did. The guards beat him when he was too slow. They gave him barely enough food to survive. At night, he slept on a thin mat in a room with 20 other slaves. The room was cold, and there were no blankets. Many slaves died in those first weeks. Their bodies were thrown into space. No one said words for them. No one remembered their names. But Do-hyun did not die. His body hurt. His hands bled. His muscles screamed with pain. But he did not die. He woke up each morning and went to work. He ate whatever food they gave him. He did what he was told. And he watched. He watched the guards. He learned their schedules, their habits, their weaknesses. He learned which ones were cruel and which ones were lazy. He learned which doors were locked and which ones were not. He learned where the power systems were, where the air systems were, where the emergency equipment was kept. He did not know why he was learning these things. He just knew that he had to. The other slaves noticed him. They noticed that he never complained, never cried, never gave up. Some of them thought he was strange. Others thought he was already dead inside. One slave thought he was something else entirely. His name was Gaul. He was a Morvian, a species with 4 arms and 4 eyes. His skin was gray and rough like stone. He was old, older than any slave in the mines. He had been there for almost 20 years. Gol watched the human boy with great interest. One night, after the guards had locked them in the sleeping room, Gaul sat down next to Do-hyun. The boy was sitting in the corner, his back against the wall, his eyes open, even though everyone else was trying to sleep. "You are different," Gaul said quietly. His voice was gentle, not what you would expect from such a large creature. Do-hyun looked at him, but said nothing. "I have seen many slaves come through these mines," Gaul continued. "Most of them break within weeks. Their bodies give up, or their minds give up. But you," he tilted his head, his 4 eyes studying the boy's face. "You are not breaking. You are becoming something else." Do-hyun still said nothing. He had not spoken since he arrived. "I heard the guards talking about you," Gaul said. "They said you have a sister. They said she was sold to the pleasure houses on Station Varus." Something moved in Do-hyun's eyes. A flash of emotion, quick and hot, before it disappeared again. Gol nodded slowly. "I see. You are waiting for something. You are planning something." The old Morvian leaned closer. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Be careful, little one. The Kalori are not stupid. If they see what you are doing, they will kill you." For the first time, Do-hyun spoke. His voice was rough from not being used, barely more than a whisper. "They can try." Gaul felt a chill run down his back. There was something in the boy's voice, something cold and dark and patient. It was not the voice of a child. It was the voice of something much older, much more dangerous. From that night on, Gaul became Do-hyun's protector and teacher. The old Morvian had survived in the mines for 20 years because he was smart. He knew how to avoid trouble. He knew how to hide his strength so the guards would not see him as a threat. He knew the secrets of the mining station, secrets that he had never shared with anyone. He shared them with Do-hyun. At night, in quiet whispers, Gaul taught the boy everything. He taught him about the station's layout, about the weak points in the structure, about the schedules of the guard shifts. He taught him which tools could be used as weapons and where to hide things so the guards would not find them. More importantly, he taught Do-hyun about patience. "Humans are strange creatures," Gal said one night. "I have met a few in my life. You are not the strongest species. You are not the fastest. You do not live very long compared to others." Do-hyun listened. "But you have something that other species do not have," Gal continued. "You can adapt. You can change. You can take pain and use it to make yourselves stronger. And you can wait. You can wait for years, for decades, planning and preparing, until the perfect moment comes." He looked at the boy with all four of his eyes. "That is what makes you dangerous. Not your strength or your speed. Your patience." A year passed. Do-hyun grew, but not much. The poor food and hard work kept him small and thin. But his body became hard. His muscles became tough, and his hands became calloused from work. The guards stopped beating him. They stopped because strange things happened to guards who hurt Do-hyun too badly. One guard fell into a mining shaft after beating the boy. It was an accident. No one saw what happened. Another guard was crushed when a mining cart broke loose after kicking Do-hyun. It was an accident. No one saw what happened. A third guard touched a power cable that had been damaged and died from the shock after breaking Do-hyun's arm. It was an accident. No one saw what happened. The guards started to whisper about the human boy. They said he was cursed. They said bad luck followed him. They said it was better to just leave him alone. None of them understood the truth. None of them saw the small pieces of sabotage, the tiny cuts in cables, the loosened bolts, the careful traps laid by small hands in dark tunnels. Do-hyun was not cursed. He was hunting, and he was still waiting. Every night, he thought about Yuna. He wondered if she was still alive. He wondered what they were doing to her. He wondered if she had given up hope. "I am coming, Nuna," he whispered. In the darkness, using the Korean word for older sister. "I do not know when. I do not know how. But I am coming. And when I get there, I will make them pay for everything." The fire inside him burned brighter. One day, his chance would come. One day, he would escape this place. One day, he would find his sister. And on that day, the galaxy would learn what happens when you hurt a human's family. Another year passed in the mines. Do-hyun was 10 years old now, though he looked younger. His body was small and thin from years of bad food and hard work. His face had lost all the softness of childhood. His eyes had become something else entirely. They were dark and quiet and always watching. The slaves in Mining Station 7 had learned to stay away from him. Not because he was dangerous to them. He had never hurt any of them. But there was something about him that made them uncomfortable. Something cold. Something patient. Something waiting. The guards had also learned to stay away. 3 of their brothers had died in accidents near the human boy. The Kalori were superstitious creatures. They believed in bad luck and curses. They believed that some beings carried death with them. They called. Do-hyun the ghost. Gol was the only one who stayed close to him. The old Morvian had become like a father to the boy. They worked together in the mines during the day. At night, they sat together in the sleeping quarters and talked in quiet voices. "Your patience is strong," Gol told him one night. "Stronger than anyone I have ever seen. But patience without opportunity is nothing. You need a chance, little one. A moment when the guards are weak and the doors are open." Do-hyun nodded. He knew this. He had been waiting for that moment for 2 years. But moments like that did not come often in places like this. Then, one morning, everything changed. The alarm bell rang for a new shipment of slaves. This happened every few months. Old slaves died, and new ones came to replace them. It was the cycle of the mines. But this shipment was different. Do-hyun was working in Tunnel 7 when he heard the guards talking. Their voices carried through the narrow passages, bouncing off the rock walls. Broken merchandise from Station Varus. one guard said. Used up pleasure slaves. The bosses are sending them here to work until they die. What a waste, another guard replied. They will not last a week in the mines. That is the point. This way, no one has to feed them for long. Dahin stopped working. His heart, which had been calm and steady for 2 years, suddenly started beating faster. Station Varus. That was where they had taken Yuna. He put down his pick and walked toward the main hall where new slaves were processed. No one stopped him. The guards did not like to look at him, and the other slaves knew better than to get in his way. The new slaves stood in a line, waiting to be assigned to their work groups. There were about 20 of them. Most were women, though some were young men. They all had the same look on their faces, empty, broken, waiting to die. Do-hyun walked along the line, looking at each face. His hands started to shake. She was there. Yuna stood near the end of the line. She was only 25 years old, but she looked much older. Her dark hair was thin and gray in places. Her face was covered with scars. Her eyes were empty, staring at nothing. She did not recognize him at first. How could she? The last time she saw him, he was an 8-year-old boy crying in a cage. Now he was something else. Something harder. Something colder. Nuna. The word was soft, barely more than a breath. But Yuna heard it. Her empty eyes slowly focused on the small figure standing in front of her. Nuna, Do-hyun said again. It is me. It is Do-hyun. Yuna's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her legs gave way beneath her. She fell to her knees on the cold metal floor. No, she whispered. No, it cannot be. They told me you were dead. They said you died in the mines years ago. Do-hyun knelt down in front of her. He took her hands in his. They were rough hands, covered in calluses and scars, but they were gentle. I am not dead, Nuna. I am here. I am alive. Yuna stared at him. Then she started to cry. Not soft tears, but great heaving sobs that shook her whole body. She pulled him close and held him so tight that he could barely breathe. I am sorry, she gasped between sobs. I am so sorry. I could not protect you. I tried to come back for you. I tried to find you, but they would not let me. They kept me locked up. They did things to me. So many things. Do-hyun held her. His face was calm, but inside, the fire was burning brighter than ever. He could feel the scars on her arms through her thin clothes. He could see the marks on her neck and face. He could imagine what she had gone through for 2 years. It is not your fault, he said quietly. None of this is your fault. You did not fail me. They did this to us. The Kalori, Commander Tova, they are the ones to blame. That night, Do-hyun sat in a dark corner of the sleeping quarters while Yuna rested. Gal came to sit beside him. That is your sister? The old Morvian asked. Do-hyun nodded. Gal was quiet for a long moment. What are you going to do? I heard the guards talking today, Do-hyun said. His voice was flat and cold. Commander Tova is coming to inspect the mines tomorrow. He comes every year to check on his investment. Gal's 4 eyes went wide. Commander Tova? The one who sold you and your sister? Yes, little one. Gal's voice was filled with worry. What are you planning? Do-hyun turned to look at him. In the dim light, his eyes seemed to glow. I am going to kill him. That is impossible. He will have guards. Many guards. You are just one small boy. I have been preparing for 2 years, Do-hyun said. I know every tunnel in this station. I know where every power cable runs. I know where the weapons are stored. I know which guards are lazy and which doors do not lock properly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a piece of metal. It had been sharpened to a razor edge. It was small enough to hide in his hand, but sharp enough to cut through flesh. I have weapons. I have plans. I have traps set throughout the station. Gaul looked at the blade, then at the boy's face. You could die, he said. I know. Your sister could die. If I do nothing, she will die anyway. She has nothing left. No hope, no strength. If I do not give her something to live for, she will give up. Dahyun put the blade back in his pocket. I am not going to let her give up. I am going to show her that the people who hurt her can be hurt too. I am going to show her that they can bleed. I am going to show her that they can die. He stood up and looked down at the old Morvian. Tomorrow, Commander Tova comes to the mines. Tomorrow, he will meet the human cub he sold into slavery 2 years ago. Tomorrow, he will learn what humans do to people who hurt our families. Gaul watched him walk away into the darkness. The old slave had seen many things in his 20 years in the mines. He had seen slaves try to fight back. He had seen them all fail. But something about this boy was different. Something told him that tomorrow would be a day the Kalori Empire would never forget. Commander Tova's shuttle arrived at Mining Station 7 exactly on schedule. The Kalori Empire ran on schedules. Everything had its proper time and place. It was one of the things that made them powerful. It was also one of the things that made them predictable. Tova stepped off the shuttle with 6 guards around him. He was wearing his formal uniform, green and gold, decorated with medals from his years of service to the Empire. His scales had been polished until they shone. He looked like a creature who had never known fear. The station overseer met him at the landing bay. They exchanged formal greetings and began walking through the station. Tova wanted to see everything. The processing rooms, the equipment storage, the mining tunnels, the slave quarters. He wanted to make sure his investment was being managed properly. Deep in the tunnels of Mining Station 7, Dahyun waited. He had woken up before the artificial dawn. He had checked all of his preparations one last time. The traps were set. The timing was calculated. The escape route was clear. Yuna had wanted to come with him. She had grabbed his arm and begged him not to go. They will kill you, she had said, her voice shaking. You are just a child. You cannot fight them. Dahyun had looked at her with his quiet, dark eyes. I am not a child anymore, Nuna. I have not been a child for a long time. He had gently removed her hand from his arm. Stay here. Stay with the other slaves. When you hear the alarms, run to Tunnel 12. There is an emergency escape pod there. Get in it and press the red button. It will take you to open space. The Federation patrols these areas sometimes. They will find you. What about you? I will meet you there. She had known he was lying. She could see it in his eyes. But she had also seen something else. She had seen the fire. She had seen the determination. She had seen the boy who had survived 2 years in hell just to find her again. She had let him go. Now Dahyun moved through the dark tunnels like a ghost. He knew every corner, every shadow, every hiding spot. 2 years of watching and waiting had given him perfect knowledge of this place. He heard Tova's group before he saw them. Their footsteps echoed through the tunnels. Their voices carried in the quiet darkness. Production is up 3% from last quarter, the overseer was saying. We have been working the slaves harder. More hours, less food. It increases productivity. What about the death rate? Tova asked. Higher than before, but acceptable. We get new shipments every few months. The supply is endless. Tova made a sound of approval. Good. The Empire needs these minerals. I do not care how many slaves die getting them. Dahyun felt his hands tighten into fists. His nails dug into his palms. The fire inside him burned brighter. He followed the group at a distance, waiting for the right moment. They were moving toward Mining Sector 7, where most of the new slaves had been assigned, where Yuna had been assigned. Tova stopped walking. He had seen something that caught his attention. "That female," he said, pointing with one clawed finger. "She looks familiar. Bring her to me." Do-hyun looked and saw Yuna standing with a group of other slaves. She was holding a mining pick, pretending to work. But her hands were shaking. 2 guards moved toward her. The fire inside, Do-hyun exploded. He pressed a small button hidden in his hand. All around the mining sector, small charges exploded. They were not big enough to hurt anyone. They were just big enough to cut the power cables that fed the lights. The sector went dark. Total darkness. The kind of darkness that made even the Kalori blind. But Do-hyun had prepared for this. He had spent months learning to move in complete darkness. He had practiced until he could navigate the tunnels with his eyes closed. The darkness was not his enemy, it was his weapon. He moved fast. The first guard never saw him coming. Do-hyun jumped on his back, wrapped his arms around the guard's neck, and cut his throat with the sharpened piece of metal. The guard fell to the ground without making a sound. The second guard heard something and turned. Do-hyun was already there. He stabbed the blade into the soft spot under the guard's arm, where the scales were thin. The guard screamed and collapsed. Emergency lights flickered on. Red lights, dim and weak, barely enough to see, but enough to see the small figure standing between the guards and Yuna. Tova stared at the human child. Blood covered the boy's hands and arms. His clothes were torn and dirty. His face was calm, expressionless, like he was doing nothing more interesting than eating a meal. "You," Tova breathed. Recognition slowly dawned in his yellow eyes. "The cub from the auction." Do-hyun raised his head and looked at the commander. "You remember me?" "I remember every piece of merchandise I sell," Tova said. His hand moved toward his sidearm. "I remember you bit one of my guards. I remember sending you here to be broken." "I remember too," Do-hyun said. "I remember everything. I remember what you said you would do to my sister. I remember what you did to my parents. I remember every single day I spent in these mines." He took a step forward. His bare feet made no sound on the metal floor. "I remember, and I have been waiting." Tova's hand closed around his weapon. He was fast, faster than any human could be. He drew the gun and pointed it at the boy in less than a second. "Enough," Tova growled. "I do not know how you killed my guards, but it ends now. You are going to die, little cub. And then I am going to sell your sister again. I know some buyers who pay extra for damaged merchandise." He smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Do-hyun did not move. He just stood there, blood dripping from his hands, looking at the commander with those dark, patient eyes. "Lay a finger on her again," the cub growled, "and no one leaves alive." Tova laughed. It was a harsh sound, like rocks breaking apart. "You are one small boy. I have 4 guards left. You have a piece of metal. I have a gun that can burn through walls. What exactly do you think you can do?" Do-hyun smiled. It was not a child's smile. It was something older, something darker, something that had been waiting 2 years for this moment. "I think," he said quietly, "that you should look up." Tova looked up. The ceiling above them was filled with mining equipment. Heavy drills, metal scaffolding, tons of rock and ore waiting to be processed. And one small cable, already frayed and sparking. Holding all of it together, Do-hyun pressed another button. The ceiling came down. Tova tried to run, but he was too slow. The first piece of scaffolding caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. His gun flew from his hand. More debris fell, crushing 2 of his guards instantly. The remaining guards panicked and ran. They did not care about their commander. They only cared about saving themselves. Do-hyun walked through the falling debris like it was rain. He had calculated exactly where it would fall. He had mapped out a safe path through the destruction months ago. He found Tova on the ground, half buried under metal and rock. The commander was still alive, but his legs were crushed. Purple blood pooled beneath him. Do-hyun crouched down beside him. He looked into those yellow eyes that had haunted his nightmares for 2 years. "You were wrong about me," Do-hyun said softly. "You thought I was weak because I was small. You thought I was nothing because I was human. But you did not understand what humans are." He leaned closer. "We are not strong like you. We are not big like you. We do not have claws or scales or weapons built into our bodies. But we have something you will never have." He put his hand on Tova's chest, feeling the commander's heart beating fast with fear. "We have patience. We have memory. And we have love. Love for our families that makes us do impossible things." He pressed down. "You hurt my family. You killed my parents. You sold my sister into a life of pain and suffering. Did you really think I would forget? Did you really think I would forgive?" Tova opened his mouth to speak, but only blood came out. "Rest now," Do-hyun said. "Rest and know that you created me. Everything I am, everything I became, you made. Remember that in whatever darkness waits for you." He stood up and walked away. Behind him, Commander Tova of the Kalori Empire died alone in the dark. The human cub had kept his promise. The Federation rescue ship arrived at Mining Station 7, 6 hours after the emergency beacon was activated. Captain Minji of the rescue vessel Starlight had seen many things in her 20 years of service. She had found abandoned colonies where everyone was dead. She had discovered prison ships floating in empty space. She had rescued survivors from disasters that should have killed everyone, but she had never seen anything like this. Mining Station 7 was a ruin. Entire sections had collapsed. Power systems were destroyed. Emergency lights flickered in the darkness, casting strange shadows on the walls, and there were bodies. Kalori bodies, 14 guards and 1 commander. All dead. Some had been killed in what looked like accidents. Cave-ins, equipment failures, explosions, but others had been killed in ways that were clearly deliberate. Clean cuts, precise strikes, the work of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Captain Minji led her team through the destroyed station, looking for survivors. They found them in the slave quarters. More than 100 beings from different worlds, huddled together in fear and confusion. And among them, 2 humans. The first was a young woman with scars on her face and empty eyes that were slowly filling with something that might have been hope. Her name was Yuna. The second was a small boy sitting beside her. He was covered in blood and dust. His hands were wrapped in torn cloth to hide the cuts and bruises. His dark eyes watched the Federation soldiers like a predator watching prey. Captain Minji crouched down in front of him. "Are you hurt?" she asked gently. She was human too, born on Earth, raised in the orbital stations above the planet. She had seen human children who had suffered terrible things. She knew how to talk to them, but this child was different. "I am fine," Do-hyun said. His voice was calm and steady. "My sister needs medical attention. Her injuries are old, but some have become infected. She also has not eaten properly in a long time." Captain Minji looked at him for a long moment. This was not how children talked. This was how soldiers talked, officers, people who had seen war. "We will take care of her," she said. "We will take care of both of you. You are safe now." "She is safe now," Do-hyun corrected. "That is what matters." The rescue team brought all the survivors aboard the Starlight. Medical teams worked through the night treating injuries, giving food and water, trying to help beings who had been treated like animals for years. Yuna was taken to the medical bay. Do-hyun refused to leave her side. He sat in a chair next to her bed, holding her hand, watching the doctors work. He did not sleep. He did not eat. He just watched. Captain Minji came to check on them several times. Each time, she found the boy exactly where she had left him. "You should rest," she told him during one visit. "You have been through a terrible experience. Your body needs time to recover." "I will rest when she's better," Do-hyun said. "The doctors say she will be fine. Her wounds are healing. She just needs time. Then I will wait." Captain Minji sat down across from him. "Can I ask you something?" Do-hyun looked at her. "The surveillance footage from the station," Captain Minji said slowly. "We recovered some of it. Not all, but enough." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "We saw what happened. We saw you deal with Commander Tova and his guards. I have been in combat before. I have seen trained soldiers fight. But I have never seen anyone move like you did. Plan like you did." She leaned forward. "You are 10 years old. How is that possible?" Do-hyun was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft. "Do you know what the Kalori call humans?" Captain Minji shook her head. "They call us soft, weak, short-lived, not worth the trouble of enslaving." He looked down at his bandaged hands. "They think strength means big muscles and sharp claws. They think power means weapons and ships and armies." He looked back at her. "But they do not understand what humans are. They do not understand what makes us dangerous. And what is that? We adapt. We learn. We remember." His dark eyes seemed to look through her into some distant place. "I was 8 years old when they took us. I watched them kill my parents. I watched them drag my sister away. I was small and weak and alone." His hands tightened into fists. "I could have given up. I could have broken like they wanted me to. I could have died in the mines like so many others. But I did not. Because I had something to live for. Someone to protect." He looked at Yuna's sleeping face. "I spent 2 years learning, watching, planning. Every day, I thought about her. Every night, I promised myself that I would find her, that I would save her, that I would make them pay." He turned back to Captain Minji. "The Kalori do not understand this. They do not have families like we do. They do not feel love like we do. They cannot imagine someone spending years preparing for a single moment. They cannot imagine a child becoming something else entirely, driven by nothing but the need to protect someone they love. And that is what makes us dangerous," Captain Minji said quietly, understanding finally dawning. "Yes," Do-hyun nodded. "We are not strong. We are not fast. We did not live very long, but we love deeply. We remember everything, and we never, ever give up." The story spread across the galaxy within weeks. The Kalori Empire was furious. One of their commanders had been killed by a human child. 14 of their guards had been destroyed. An entire mining station had been wrecked. They demanded that the Federation hand over the boy for trial. The Federation's response was simple: "Come and take him." The Kalori did not come. They were afraid. Not of the Federation's ships or weapons. Those they could fight. Those they could defeat. They were afraid of what the human boy represented. A child who had survived 2 years of slavery and emerged as something that could destroy them. If one small human could do this, what could a million humans do? A billion? What would happen if humanity ever decided to stop being soft? The Kalori did not want to find out. 10 years passed. Yuna lived on Earth now in a small house near the ocean. She worked as a counselor for survivors of galactic trafficking. She helped people who had been through what she had been through. She taught them that they could heal, that they could find hope again, that the darkness did not have to last forever. She smiled more now. The nightmares came less often. The scars on her skin had faded, and the scars on her heart were slowly healing. She was proud of her little brother. So proud Captain Do-hyun stood on the bridge of his ship, the Yuna's Promise. He was 20 years old now, though he still looked young. His face was calm and serious. His dark eyes still watched everything, still saw everything. He had joined the Federation Rescue Corps at 18, the youngest officer in their history. Now, 2 years later, he commanded his own ship. A fast ship, built for one purpose: finding and rescuing people who had been taken by slavers. His crew loved him. They followed him because they had seen what he could do. They had seen him walk into impossible situations and walk out with survivors. They had seen him face enemies that should have destroyed him and win. They called him the Ghost, just like the Kalori guards had called him all those years ago. But to the people he rescued, he was something else. He was hope. An alert sounded on the bridge. A distress signal from the outer rim. A slaver vessel had been spotted, carrying prisoners toward Kalori space. Doyun sat down in his command chair. "All hands," he said calmly. "Prepare for combat operations." His crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had done this many times before. They would do it many times again, because somewhere out there, in the darkness between stars, someone's brother or sister or child was waiting to be rescued. Someone was alone and afraid and losing hope. And Captain Doyun would find them. He would always find them, because he knew what it felt like to be lost. He knew what it felt like to have everything taken away. And he knew what it felt like to survive anyway, to keep going, to never give up. The Yuna's promise jumped into hyperspace, carrying its crew toward another battle, another rescue, another chance to show the galaxy what humans truly were. Not the strongest, not the fastest, not the longest lived, but the most determined, the most patient, the most protective, and the most dangerous. When someone threatened the people they loved, the stars blurred around the ship as it flew toward the darkness. Captain Dohee smiled. He still had his claws, and he was not done hunting.